Welcome to the MOGL podcast. I'm Tim Bryson, Director of Athlete Education and Compliance, and I am the host of our show. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you're a returning community member, welcome back. As y'all know, the MOGL podcast is dedicated to educating all NIL athletes and brands on how to ensure compliance, how to maximize NIL activity, and how to make a difference in the ever-evolving NIL landscape. Today, we have a very special guest, our first non-MOGL guest at that. He's someone who does not need a formal introduction. Well, I'm definitely going to show love and give him his flowers on purpose. This guy is a Christ believer, first and foremost, and Mississippi native. He's the founder of Emergent Executives, author of The Blueprint for a Successful Career, and director of NIL Education at No Cap Sports. He's also a versatile event management professional, interactive presenter, which for those who've seen him, you already know, and contributor to Front Office Sports and collegead.com. This guy is him, and this is Bag Talk. Will Baggett, welcome to the MOGL podcast, bro.
Man, what's going on, man? I'm walking with TB, man. What's going on with you, brother?
Hey, we're going to get you on the pod, bro. We're going to get you on the pod. And everyone keeps saying, when am I bringing the podcast back?
Yes, sir.
Definitely starting the MOGL podcast. It's definitely reignited, some energy to relaunch season 5 coming up in a few months. But right now I'm saying no. And I'm to everybody else and saying yes to myself, bro. But good to see you.
Yes, sir, man. Pleasure's all mine, man. Congratulations on the new opportunity, continued growth, man. Just everything you have going, from your doctorate to, your craft beer love, man, to all the crazy workouts you be doing. I see you, I support you, man. It's all love. And I thought I had a deep voice, boy. You got that Barry White over there, boy.
Hey, I had to pull it out. I got to pull it out. It's my podcast voice, people say. It's my podcast voice.
Yes, sir.
Hey,
yes, sir.
But I'm going to keep it a buck, bro. Like I said, I wanted to start this podcast as soon as I got hired with MOGL, right? As soon as they reached out and we had a conversation, I'm like, yo, we got to start a pod. And I told you before, as you know, this is not our first time trying this episode, but I told you countless times, bro, I wanted you to be the first guest on the show for a number of different reasons. But one of which is your story. So you already know how this shit goes. Segment 1, Will Baggett, what's your story?
My story, man, crazy story, man, but I'll keep it short for the sake of time so we can get into what you guys came here for. But born and raised in Grenada, Mississippi. So if you never heard of it, it's the place you stop if you're going to Jackson or Memphis to get gas. All right. That's what Grenada is known for. All right. So not the country, it's a county in Mississippi. So we call that area Mississippi is what we call it. But that's home for me. I went to undergrad at University of Mississippi, grad school at Baylor University. And I've been in Dallas, Texas for about 5 years now. I've worked with the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. I've worked with IMG, college licensing. I've worked with the Cotton Bowl, Final Fours. you name it, kind of been there, done that, and got plenty of t-shirts. So excited about that, man. And yeah, right now, like you mentioned, I'm just kind of working on, continue to work with student athletes to expand NIL education, particularly in the branding space, and also involved with other entrepreneurial pursuits that, that make me happy and allow me to create jobs and opportunities for other people. So I would say my story is one of resilience and one of opportunity and being given opportunity and now wanting to put it back in the bucket and create it for others. So that's my story. That's Bag Talk.
Hey, it's Bag Talk. And I know before we talked about this, right, the fact that you have Mississippi native in your bio. And for me, that's something that I've really come to own, being an Ohio native, right, Ohio kid, Cincinnati boy, right? Just talk to us more about what it means to be from Mississippi, given that's something that you lead with now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I put on for my state, man. So I saw I think it was a podcast recently where they were talking about a number of big time rappers, and sometimes celebrities don't claim Mississippi even though they're from there. Like Soulja Boy's from Batesville, Mississippi, like 30 minutes from where I grew up. Ray Shrimmin, Tupelo, Mississippi. You know what I mean? Rick Ross has ties to Mississippi. And yet you never hear many of them claiming in their raps. And you got people like David Banner and Big Crit that kind of carry the torch from Mississippi. But there are so many talented people that have roots there. And I really want to bring light to our state because we are pretty much number one in everything bad. So I want to make sure, man, that I at least shine some light on the show that, hey, I'm Mississippi made, although I'm Texas paid now. But that's what made me who I am. And I think we have a lot of talented people there, a lot of people that they got that good country home hospitality, and they deserve to be spotlighted in a positive manner. They deserve representation in the most positive lights. I grew up not far from the Mississippi Delta, which is one of the poorest parts of the United States, right? And so to be able to show people like, hey, what can come from Mississippi with the right guidance and the right work ethic, I believe that, it's incumbent of me, along with other Mississippi natives, to carry that torch forward and to make sure that we are bringing light and bringing great just publicity to our state, because the CIP got something to say.
That's facts. Y'all do. Yeah, y'all really do. And I think that as you talk about growing up in Mississippi, like what it means to be Mississippi made, right now Texas paid. One of the influential decisions you made in your life, you had to make, or one that you had to embrace, that has helped you to become the man you are today.
Yeah, so it's interesting we're having this conversation now. So I'm preparing to go next Monday to Mississippi State University to lead a leadership retreat. And so that's where I started my collegiate career. I graduated from Ole Miss, but I started at Mississippi State. And that was my
Yep.
first time going away from home, like being away on my own. I learned a lot. Like it grew me up pretty quickly. So I would say one of the best decisions I made was staying home. So I could have went out of state to different universities and got recruited to a lot of different places from an academic standpoint. But I thought it was important for me to continue to grow, but also stay close to my family. So my parents, my brothers, like they were all at the time in and around Mississippi. And so
Mm.
for me to kind of grow and be alongside them and to help them out and just to be available, you know what I mean? Whether it be for like different holidays and things like that, I thought it was important. And so I would say staying there, it exposed me to different parts of the state. You know, Mississippi is a tale of two halves. You got North
Mhm.
Mississippi and South Mississippi. That's pretty much it. We don't really talk about East or West, really. And so just being able to be exposed to some of those people, I've seen it come back full circle. You know, people I went to school with at both universities, a lot of them moved out here to Dallas now. And so we're able to connect, to be able to talk about what it's like back home. And I think it was probably the most influential decision I made was to stay home and to get my education there and be able to, you know, and be able to carry that forward. So I think staying home was good for me.
That's awesome, bro. It's a perfect segue to segment two, all right, in which we're talking about branding. I think the
Mhm.
NIL conversation has evolved and is, I think, taking a mind of its own and has been manipulated in many ways. We're gonna get to that part. We're gonna get to that part first, in just a few minutes. But you said Mississippi made, right? Texas paid. One of the influential decisions was not just leaving home, but then coming back home. But now bag talk is global, bro.
Okay. So,
Bag talk is global, and bag talk really came from executive image, man. The blueprint. Just talk to us
that's
more
right.
about that process. How'd you get there?
Absolutely, man. So I think back to 2018. And so I'll say this, it's important to have people in your life, in your family, in your circle that see you in different ways than you see yourself.
Mm,
Positively and in a way constructively, right? Where
mm,
they see
mm,
opportunities for growth because I don't want yes people around me. I'm trying
mm,
to get to the next levels. And so it was 2018. I was at the University of in Miami presenting, and my guy Alexander Martin, now with the Miami Dolphins, he told me, he said, "Man, you should start a podcast, and you should like use the moniker Bag Talk." I was like, "Yeah, that's cool, but I don't think I really want to do that." You fast forward 2022. I started a podcast with no cap, and now I go by Bag Talk. I even have a necklace that I paid handsomely for that has Bag Talk right across it. And so, to be honest, man, that gave me
mm.
something to believe in. You know,
That's
2020
good.
took a toll on a lot of us,
Yeah.
and in a way to kind of rebuild myself, to even rebrand myself. Bag Talk gave me something to live up to believe in, and I'm in the process of trademarking it right now. So, Bag Talk with two G's. The one with one G was already trademarked, but I'm going to trademark it and go from there. But I believe you have to have ownership is key. You have to own something. It doesn't have to be a
Mm,
tangible asset. It doesn't always have to be income producing. If it does, cool. But you need to have ownership of something. You need to live in this digital space, in this metaverse, because we're not going to be here forever. And so your
mhm.
legacy should outlive you, whether it's in pictures and videos. So I'm a huge advocate of that. If it's not on photo or video or not on the sound waves, then it never really happened.
Mm. And talk more about the book, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That
So back in 2012, I graduated from Ole Miss and I moved to Baylor University to get my master's degree. Connected with Ty Brown, now with the One Question podcast, that stuff with D1 Ticker, and we connected. And he was the one that gave me my first suit. So when I first got to him, all I had was a black tee, my Jordans, and my gold chains, and that's all I had. Right, I was not polished. I was not at least bit professional. But he took me under his wing and went me and took me to get my first suit, exposed me to different conferences. And he always asked me, he said, "Man, why are you always taking pictures and videos everywhere we go?" I said, "I'm from Mississippi, man. I've never seen this stuff before."
mm-hmm.
Right. And so quick segue, a few years later, we were in Orlando for NACTA at the World Center Marriott. And I had some buddies from the SIP that were in town that came by to visit. And they walked to the World Center Marriott. By that time, I'd been there 2 or 3 times for NACTA already, so I was used to it. And they're walking in, and I'm walking forward, and I notice they're not behind me anymore. Like, where'd they go? So I turn around, they're still at the front entrance taking pictures and videos. And I was just like, "Bro, what y'all doing?" And I was like, "Oh, wait, that was me."
Yeah.
right? And so that really just humbled me and took me back to, my genesis and my origin. So long story short, to answer your question, the blueprint was about exposure. I was
Mhm.
blessed to have great mentors, people that believed in me, people that gave me opportunities, but you can't always pick your mentors. It has to be it's a two-way street. They have to choose you, you have to choose them. And I
Mhm.
was fortunate to have that. And so I wanted to be kind of I guess, a third party or pseudo mentor to people. And that's what that book was for. So if you didn't have that guidance, if you didn't have that person that was that guiding light to expose you to different aspects of life, of sports, of any professionalism, then this book was meant to bridge that gap because I realized that having great mentorship put me ahead. It gave me a jump forward and a head start. And I would not be here without people like Kelly Brooks, Ty Brown, Jamil Northcutt, Kaz Kazadi. So these are people that, like I said, that influenced me, and I wanted to one give them their flowers, as you mentioned earlier, but
Yeah, for sure.
also help develop and mentor other people that may not have the same opportunities or exposure.
I mean, yeah, I mean, at this point, you probably, well, not probably, you definitely have talked to more than 5,000,
Uh,
7,500, 10,000 people, 20,000,
About
40,000.
27, about 27,000.
I love it. Every time you go out,
Yeah.
you still get nervous?
I do, man. But something Alan Green told me, AD at Auburn told me a long time ago when I first started. I told him I want to get into public speaking. I'll never forget this. I was in my bathroom. I was talking to him because I was trying to
Mhm.
get the advice, and he just called me back. And it's like, man, it's Alan Green. I can't tell him to call him back later,
Nah,
and he's
nah,
busy,
nah,
right?
nah. Yeah.
So I'm in the bathroom, man, in a restaurant. It wasn't my bathroom; it was at a restaurant. I remember now. And he said, "Will, you a good time to talk?" And there's music blaring in the back. Like, yeah, this is great. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, he was like, he said, man, I heard that you want to get into public speaking. I said, yes, sir, but I'm a little nervous whenever I start. I'll start stuttering and I get stage fright really easily. I'm an introvert. And he
Yeah.
said, let me, I'm gonna tell you two things, man. He said, the first thing is being nervous just means that you care, right?
Mm.
There's nothing wrong with that. But if you get to a point where you can't perform, now you made it all about you and you're being selfish. I said, wow, because I thought about it more. We don't fear public speaking. We speak, in most cases, every day. We fear the public part.
Mm.
So when you get past that public part, that's when it starts to get easier. When you're able to put on their face and say, hey, I'm qualified to be here. This is my time, right? I've done the work to be here. You have to build yourself up, in order to do this. And there's no other way. You got to be able to have that mentality, and you got to have a little fu in your system. I'll be totally honest with you. You
Got
can't be
to.
all there doing what I do because there's going to be distractions. There's going to be people walking. That maybe somebody gets up and walks out. Maybe a guy's in the back sleep. Things happen, right?
Yep.
And they
Yep.
keep you humble. They keep you humble. They make you realize, okay, I need to continue to improve so I can reach every single person in the room. And so I enjoy that challenge. So that's the first thing. Being nervous just means that you care. The second thing is it was a scenario. He was like, have you ever sat through a bad speech or bad presentation? I was like, yeah. He said, how did you feel for the presenter? I said, I felt bad for him. He said, right. He said, so secretly you wanted them to do well. I said, yeah. He says that the same thing goes for your audience. If they're there, if they have to be there, whatever they chose to be there, they want to be entertained. They want to be educated. So think
Mm.
of it as they are on your side and use that as kind of your tackling fuel to move forward. And those two things have helped me get through 86 presentations to date. And I
So
keep counting.
dope.
Yes, sir.
No, as you should.
Yeah,
As you definitely should. And one thing
sir.
you mentioned earlier, right? I mean, shout out to Alan Green, right? A mentor, someone's provided guidance, someone's helped you take ownership, maybe fueled your work ethic, things you said,
Mhm.
over the course of our conversation today. But you mentioned like you got to be ready for it, right? Like this is your time. And in a similar way, July 1, 2021, that was your time. That was you've been doing this, right? And I want to, and
Thankfully.
I for sure, but I really want us to hone on this part of the conversation because, as I mentioned before, NIL has kind of been warped in so many ways, in my opinion. And the reason why that I say this is because it started off as far as like empowering the athlete, educating the athlete ownership. That we've gone, in my personal, we've gone away
Yeah.
from
Oh,
that,
yeah. Yes,
right?
we have.
And people like myself, people like yourself, and other NIL educators are trying to bring us back to core, right? To the central purpose and mission, but we still out here somewhere. So we'd just
Yeah.
love to start the conversation right now, just like hearing some of your thoughts in regards to where we've gone, how we've evolved with NIL over the last 13 months, before
Mhm.
talking about how we're choosing to educate athletes at scale across the United States.
Absolutely. Yeah. So at 12:01 on July 1st, 2021, I mean, the world changed. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there were deals were announced at the 12:01 mark. I mean, people, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, obviously knowing they'd already done these, they're just waiting to announce it,
Yep.
right? And so, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. And
Yep.
so I think there's a spectrum. You can look at the stats that, Open Doors provides. I mean, and you can look across the board at what student athletes have done to earn income, right? And I think there are so many different ways that NIL has gone, to your point. So you mentioned athlete empowerment. But
Mm-hmm.
then we get these kind of huge brand deals. I wonder, is this going to affect team chemistry? That's still kind of a conversation that's out there. And then you have the student athletes that want to be entrepreneurs, create their own businesses, turn a 3 to 4 year opportunity into a 40 year opportunity, right? It's like their education.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then you have the advent and the rise of collectives that are coming
Mm-hmm.
in, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you also, while all this is going on, you have a bunch of third parties, whether it's MOGL, NoCap, Influencer, Icon Source. I mean, you name it. I mean, there are
Mm-hmm.
people that came out of the woodworks that I've never heard of or seen before.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh my goodness. And so, and also if you look at it from the NCAA level with the lack of kind of guidelines and guardrails, it's kind of the wild, wild west. And then the NCAA is undergoing a leadership change right now as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you think about this could be a whole nother year plus until whenever a new leader is hired, that person has to get acclimated, right? And then there's the whole congressional piece. Like, is there going to be some kind of stoppage on it? And then you have the huge deals of $400,000 in recruitment and inducements, what have you. It is the wild, wild west. And so, from where we are stand now, like I said, I like to see student athletes that have been empowered to earn an income because you have a few different spectrums, like the gymnastics student athlete at UCLA and versus the student athlete at Alabama in football. They're going to have different audiences and they may have different setups. This
Sure.
football player mama might be at home working 2 jobs and trying to support his little brothers and sisters. So for him or her, this could be a life-changing opportunity.
Exactly.
For the gymnast that may come from a different setup, life circumstances, this just could be continuing a lot of generational wealth, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I see these deals, I always think about, okay, we don't know these kids' story, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what these
Mm-hmm.
resources are going to. And
Yep.
so I think we have to be empathetic to understand, okay, where do they come from, what they learn, and also the financial literacy and educational piece is a huge component, right? Because I mean, like, if you would have handed me a few $100,000 when I was 2019, 2022, I'll tell you what I would spend it on. And it
Mm-hmm.
probably wouldn't have been the right things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, you have people like MOGL and NoCap and even other practitioners like Advanced and IL that are putting out education to try to help student athletes. And so what I see now, man, it's just that it's a learning process. I mean, it's only been a little bit over a year, a year and a month, some change in. And so I think that it's going to continue to kind of grow and develop. But my prediction is that it's going to continue to spiral a little bit. And then at some point, Congress will step in. And there's a theory that I've heard out there that the NCAA is purposely kind of letting it go every which way. And that way they can lobby to Congress to come in and put some parameters in place because the NCAA technically can't do it. I mean, you got antitrust, you got all kind of stuff that they dealt with in the past, like when Walter Byers was NCAA president, they don't want to deal with again. And so again, I think people sometimes give the NCAA a little bit too much credit and don't understand what kind of power they have. They're an association, right? It's not a conglomerate. You know what I mean? It's an association.
Mm-hmm.
They can't subpoena people. I mean, it's just a lot of different guardrails there. And so, yeah, man, it's I always tell people, I said I know branding and I'm learning NIL, but I'm not an NIL expert because there's so many different ways you can spin it. And there's some very, very creative kids out here they're monetizing their brand in so many different ways. I mean, you got kids, making ships in a bottle. You got kids that are teaching classes, that are doing summer camps. You got kids that are, social media influencers that are getting paid. I mean, endorsement deals, cars. I mean, you name it. There's no way to be an expert on all these moving pieces. And so that's the way I kind of look at it. And I'm learning, I'm observing and I'm learning. And I said, I don't try to sound smarter than I actually am. I'm learning with everyone else and I got to stay in my lane of branding. And I tell kids like, hey, I can't teach you how to be yourself. I can give you the tools to gain more exposure and to amplify it. And that's what I try to focus my efforts on.
You hit on the head the last part, right? Because again, it's name, image, likeness.
Mm-hmm.
It's your name, image, likeness. I can't. What brand should I partner with? You tell me what. I mean, I tell you how to you tell me that, right? But then it goes back to the ownership part you talked about earlier in regards to one, how you address your own life, but then two, how we can educate, all athletes to leverage their NIL in their own way. But
Mhm,
another thing that you mentioned, right, was the NCAA being an association, right? A members association at that. And
mhm.
then many people don't know that, right? And part of that could just be they just don't know, or they don't know
Yep,
where to find it. Another part of it is helping them to understand that, like, you need to gather the information so that you know the game,
that's
right?
right.
Like, learn the rules of the game.
Yep,
For me, how I'm approaching NIL is like, yo, this is a game, right? You're playing chess out here.
yeah, yep,
Here's how this move, here's how that move, here's how this move. So curious to like hear more about your approach when you're talking with a lot of these athletes, because again, it comes down to
mhm,
ownership, right? You can
mhm,
monetize for money, you can look at social entrepreneurship, you can look at
mhm.
service, you can take it however you want. But I think there's like a pressure, if you will, of like monetization. It only has to
Yep,
be monetization. So
yep,
it's curious to hear your thoughts in regards to how you're educating athletes to take ownership of NIL, their NIL activity in their
yeah,
own way.
absolutely. So believe it or not, there's some kids that couldn't care less about NIL.
Exactly.
There are, and
Exactly.
there is that peer pressure to monetize, to kind of be one of the guys or one of the girls that are monetizing their brands and likenesses. The key
Mm-hmm.
is though, like I said earlier, you got some kids that really don't need it, right? And so it's extra work. And then you got, I was talking to a swim coach the other day at Washington State, and he said that his kids are on from 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily.
Yep.
Like when are they supposed to, work on their
Yep.
NIL, right? And so
Yep.
that's
Yep.
a huge piece of it. So my approach is one that I've heard from some other branding coaches, but it's that whole formula of consistency plus frequency equals brand recall.
Yep.
That's literally what I kind of frame my pieces around. And so we talk about a few different elements relative to who you are as a person, because there's branding is for money, for monetization, and there's also lifestyle branding, because there's some I know people know, I know working is not popular right now, but some folks got to go to work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we focus on the ABCs of professionalism, and
Yep.
these can work with your brand or they can work with you as a person. And so these ABCs are appearance, behavior, communication skills, digital presence, and emotional intelligence. And we unpack each of these five elements to talk about, okay, how do you show up? What do you do when you get there? How do you communicate verbally? What does your body language say about you? What do you look like online as your front porch, as your kind of first introduction to anyone that's going to be Googling, looking you up, whatever it is? And then how emotionally intelligent are you with connecting with people, with caring, with following up, and also following through? Because people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So I
Mm-hmm.
stress a lot about the personal side. I want to build the person from the inside out, because if you're not a great person, none of this stuff really matters at the end of the day, and things will
For
catch
sure.
up with you.
Yep.
You can be good by accident. You can be great by chance, but to be elite, to be undeniable, that takes work ethic. That takes strategy. As my good friend Coach Dan Roberts says, hope is not a strategy. I want to. I would like to. I think. I feel that's not a strategy. And so anybody that I'm working with, any mentees I have, I said, you can't call me and tell me what you thinking about doing, what you wanted to do, what you thought about, this, that, and the third. I want to know what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
We talk in declarative statements. I am, I did, I shall, I will. That's how we talk, and anybody I'm working with, because I think now it's a lot of laziness
Mm-hmm.
because of how available things are to us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I'm a fan of TikTok. I'm a fan of education. I'm a fan of courses. I'm a fan of all the digital pieces that we have learned and what is helping advance our education, our knowledge bases, professionally, spiritually, financially. I'm a fan of all of it. But I will say you're getting very short and not detailed information, right? So TikTok will tell you that, hey, you can go buy a G wagon and write off on your taxes. Okay, that's partly true, but you need to be making enough money to offset that cost. In order to S corp your LLC and get taxes in S corp, you should be making over $50,000 at least to do that. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Also, you got to
Mm-hmm.
buy it in your business name. I mean, there's a lot of different pieces. So they give you they give you the appetizer, but they don't give you the meat and potatoes. And
Mm-hmm.
so it takes some reading, it takes self-education, and it takes conversations to really get the detailed information you need to know to get to where you want to be. And so that's what I think some people are missing. They think, oh, I can just go do this. I'm like, yeah, it's not that simple. There's a few more steps you get to. So, I want to get back to, hey, let's get it done. I'm willing to do what it takes, because whenever I have people that approach me and they want to become speakers, I said, okay, it's going to take this, it's going to take that, it may take a year or two, or even longer than that. before you do this. And I said, also, hey, here's a career day to high school or middle school right around the corner. Let's go do that. And they say, oh, no, I don't want to do that. That's not what I was trying to do. That's when I know. That's when I know. That's my litmus test. Yeah, what's it all about for you? Because what I would say, shooters shoot, presenters present. I don't care if it's at a Boys and Girls Club, I'm gonna present. I don't care about slides, I don't care about mics. You turn the lights off, presenters present. And so if you're a competitor, if you're an athlete that's trying to run it up, figure it out. Because what I've learned is that belief finds a way forward, and doubt finds a way out. I've learned that. So if you want it, Adam, you'll figure it out. If you don't, then you'll talk yourself out of it. And I'm okay with that. But don't come to me for motivation. I'm not good at motivation. I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm not good at that. I want you to be inspired. I want you to be disciplined, because when motivation runs out, discipline kicks in, and that's when you separate the good from the elite and the undeniable.
The kid is preaching his bad talk. I told us some bad talk on this episode, Will. And I'm laughing because someone hit me up the other day talking about my workouts. They said, y'all need to get back in the gym. I said, I can't get you in the gym. You tell me when I can hold you accountable. I can help hold you accountable. I can't get you in the gym. So you let me know when you're serious. And it's funny you bring that up though, because again, it's not just owning, right? But then also as for an athlete, owning it, but then teaching people how to treat you.
That's right.
Reteaching people how to address you, reteaching people how to come to you, right? And I think that's all part of this whole athlete empowerment part that I thought was central and core to NIL education. In a similar way, right? You mentioned the ABC DE now, of how you particularly, attack. I see how I picked up on that. Don't worry, I'm not picked up on that. How you attack NIL ed, bro. But there's another part of this, especially with Gen Z, and especially I think with the more growing critique, around professionalism, right? Around appearance, around behavior. The athletes want to talk about, at least educators like myself want to talk about.
Sure.
So curious to hear from you, like what are those questions like? What are those conversations like when you're talking about appearance with a group of, racially and gender diverse people with obviously experiences outside of that as well?
Absolutely. So, I was coming up when I was growing up, if your pants came up and your ankles were showing, that was considered flooding.
Yeah.
Now you dripping. You know what I mean? You went from flooding to dripping. You know what I mean? and make sure you guys understand this. TFB be dripping.
Yeah, a little bit.
TFB be dripping sauce. You hear me? Sauce, Tabasco, you name it. So I walk a very fine line, you know what I mean? So I say that, like, if you ever took any kind of personal finance classes, there's a thing called, I think is GAACP, Generally Accepted Accounting Principles or whatever, something like that, AACP, something like that.
Yeah.
And so I look at it like this: when it comes to professional world, there's generally accepted professional standards, right? So gaps, I guess, if you want to call it, generally accepted professional standards. So when it comes to that, you have to think about, okay, what's acceptable here? What's socially acceptable? And you have to understand that there's a thing called rules of engagement, right? So whatever environment you're in, understanding what's it going to take to be successful in this environment? What are the rules of engagement? How do I need to move to be successful in this environment? And so I always frame it. I never say, hey, this has to do this, you got to wear it like this, because kids are more individual and more explored and more creative than they've ever been before. And so I would be wrong to say, hey, you got to do this, because they may work for a tech company in Silicon Valley where it's jeans and t-shirts every single day. Right. And that may be acceptable in that environment. And if it is, that's how you move in that environment. But if you're working for, Ernst & Young or whatever it is, and they want you suited and booted, guess what? The standard is the standard. You know what I mean? If you don't complain, then get out of the game. So that's when I said, what are the standards and how can you work to meet them in an effective manner? And you don't have to be that person 24 hours a day, but for that space and time, you have to move effectively, and you have to be a chameleon. You got to be able to code switch and change what you need to change in order to be successful. And so it's not being fake, it's not being phony, it's being versatile. And that's the way I look at it. And so there are spaces, like I said, I'm from North Mississippi, man. I listen to Gucci Mane. I wear long gold chains. I like loud music and whatever, you know what I mean? But guess what? When I'm on, I'm on. And when I'm on, I'm the best in the country at what I do.
Talk about it.
I tell people, I said, I hope you feel the same way about your craft. I don't want to be around people that feel they're the best in the nation at their craft. That includes if you're selling watermelons, if you're mounting TVs, I don't care what it is. I want to be around the best in the country at what they do, because then I become more resourceful. You know what I mean? I'm resourceful. I'm not that smart. I'm not even that great of a speaker. I'm resourceful. I know how to use my environment to my advantage.
Exactly. And again, what you're talking about is the game, bro. And I think that when I reached out to you, I said, yo, I want to see, need to see, I'm going to see more non-white male NIL educators in our space because we need it, right? I ain't never heard anyone white talk about the game. I ain't never heard that, right? But again, that's part of lived experiences that we had to figure out, and part of it was like, sink or swim, but the other part was like, you legit had to figure it out.
Yes,
but it's transferables in that we can be teaching, should be teaching our athletes, especially our Black athletes, in regards to how to navigate this game called name, image, and likeness.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Segment 3, bro. Action items. Again, it's not a lecture. I know people have been dying here, both myself and you get on a pod finally together. But as we leave this conversation today, man, what are 3 things you want our audience, our listeners, to remember and leave with after our time together?
Yeah, I would say, man, the first thing is the problem is not the problem, it's how you respond to it.
It's good.
So whenever obstacles, hurdles come up, it's like you said, sink or swim. You have an opportunity to understand the situation, interpret it, and find a path forward. So the problem is never the problem, it's how you respond to it. The second thing is, man, be a great person and follow up, but more importantly, follow through. There's always that initial like, hey, great talking to you, we'll be in touch, and then you never hear from them again, right? And so be someone of value that is following up, that's touching base when you don't want anything. Hey, it's Tuesday, it's Wednesday. I just want to say, I thought about you, hope you're doing well. Those things go a long way. So when opportunities come up, you're top of mind, right? And so you have opportunities to do that, whether it's birthdays, anniversaries, promotions, changes. Reach out, take care of people, be engaged. The third thing I would say is, like I said, I'll repeat it, belief finds a way forward, doubt finds a way out. And so if you want it bad enough, I want to see you doing the work. I'll give you a quick example. So I met with Coach Darren Roberts in 2017, mentioned I want to be a speaker. We went to go eat lunch for an hour and a half. For the next 2 to 3, 4, 5 years, we only touched base sparingly. And I stayed in contact as my family was doing. But he never once sent me a speaking engagement opportunity until I was 5 years in and over 150 presentations. Because I told him, I said what I was going to do, and I went and did the work. I didn't ask for handouts. I didn't ask him for this. I took an hour and a half of his time for lunch in 2017, and that turned into 186 engagements. And it was just this summer he sent me my first one because he saw the work. He saw the reviews. He saw the response. I didn't call him and say, hey, can you send me something? Hey, you got anything? It don't work like that. You know what I mean? So people will see the work if you're doing it. And the last thing I'll say that someone told me recently, it says some of your first opportunities will come through application, whether it's through a resume, whatever you got to do. But subsequently, if you're doing your job at a high level, your next opportunities will come through invitation. So it's going to be application first, but next it should turn into invitations if you're the best at what you do.
I love it. Until they give us 4, which is a bonus for everyone listening.
Yeah, man. Yeah, well, I try to tie it in, man, but I get on the roll, baby. You know
Listen, I'm appreciative. We're appreciative. Before I ask this final question, dog, send me your jeweler's name. I definitely need to get a TFB necklace at this point. What you got? You got the 18-inch, 20-inch? How long you?
Man, I got, man. It's about a 20, and it's man. Can I go get it?
Yeah, go get it.
One second. Hold on.
Go get it. Yeah.
So
man, really, you got
I'm back. So got it, man. Shout out to my boy Alexander Martin and my jeweler Harish. You know what I mean? So this is my necklace. This is
you really my gosh. Yo, if you listen to this podcast, hop on the YouTube right now and look at this chain. Yo, that's fire.
Yeah, like so WB, I couldn't. Shout out to Warner Brothers. Sorry about that. Trademark infringement. Y'all be all right though. Y'all got money. So
hey,
but like I said, that's me though, man. That's me. That's part of me. That's who I am.
No, I love it, man. First and foremost, thank you for joining the pod today. Mad love for you, mad love to you. I love you. We need you in this space. I'm glad you're in this space. Glad you're still here, as I said earlier. But can I let you go, bro, without doing some quick hitters, particularly one question that I had. It's only one.
Let's do it.
Who do you want to see? Who do you want to hear from on the MOGL podcast? Who we need to get on?
Who I want to see? Oh, Darren Roberts. Absolutely. Coach Darren Roberts. Yes, sir. Yeah, well known for Flames throwing when he was on the microphone. Yes, sir. My guy, Darren Roberts. That's what I would say.
All right, I'm gonna hit you after this so we can schedule that, figure out a way to make that happen. But definitely love to get you on, Darren Roberts, Coach Darren Roberts.
Yes, sir. Absolutely, man. Like I said, you gotta give people the flowers, and I wouldn't be who I am without them.
And I respect that. Anything you want to share before we hop off today?
Nah, man, I just want to say, like I said, man, I appreciate you walking in your truth, being about unapologetically who you are in every aspect, of every way that you live your life. And so it's inspired me to be more myself, right? To go get, goofy chain,
Come
gaudy
on,
chain. So,
come on.
but like I said, your inspiration to many, your resilience, your perseverance, and being able to say, hey, this is how I'm moving, this is how I'm coming, and being able to walk away from things that don't serve you. So I admire that. I respect your resilience and how you built your brand to what it is today. So it's all love, it's all respect. And I appreciate the platform you created to give people like me an opportunity to speak our voice and speak our truths. So keep doing what you're doing, man. Inspiration. It's all love this way.
You already know, man. I got big things coming 2023 for you, and we'll be in
Yes,
touch.
sir. Yes, sir, bro.
Everyone else, man, thank y'all for tuning in to another episode of the MOGL Podcast, man. Make sure y'all rate and review 5 stars and a fire review if you have some time today. I look forward to seeing y'all next week, hearing from y'all next week as we have another guest on the show to talk about how we can ensure that all NIL athletes get paid, build their brand, and make a difference. As always, get MOGL. Peace out.
Sir. Take care.